Hello, welcome back to Coffee Break Blogging, episode 60. Today we're going to dive right into the content of our blog post and talk a little bit about that. Obviously, with a podcast about blogging, content is a pretty big part of what we're doing here. And so that's what we're going to be talking about here is how to make content that actually is going to engage. Now, the first thing we want to talk about is our headlines. It is really the gateway to whether anybody's ever going to read your blog post. And the thing is, statistically, most people are not going to read your blog post. It kind of truly sucks. We think that all of our readers are going to check it out because they're interested, but that's really not the way that it actually works. But what is going to really set it for you and really be the make or break point on whether they read or not is going to be that headline. Now, if you're anything like me, you probably don't put a lot of thought into your headlines, or at least I didn't used to. I do this a lot more now. I used to be, and still am by nature, a guy that shoots from the hip. I tend to write a good post, and then I'll come back and look for a headline that I think people would search for on Google to find a post like what I just wrote, and I would title it by that. And then I would, tweak it a little bit to try to make the headline sort of interesting. But basically, I would shoot from the hip. There are better ways to go. And that's what we're going to be talking about. Now, the really big thing that you want to do when it comes to your headline is do you want to write a ton of them? And this is probably the big idea that I want you to get from this episode. And I want you to work this into your procedure or your system on every time that you write a blog post. I want you to do this. I want you to sit down and write 25 headlines for every single blog post. Now, it might seem like an awful lot of work, and I got to be honest with you, it definitely is more work. Where did I get this from? The first time that I ever heard of this was a presentation that was put on by the people at Upworthy.com. Now, if you're familiar with Upworthy or not familiar with Upworthy, it's a viral content site. And essentially what they do is they scour the web looking for things that are interesting, and then they surface it on Upworthy.com. And essentially what they're doing is they are putting a really, really sexy headline on it, packaging the content in a way to magnify it out there and make it viral. But essentially, they didn't make it. And that's the really cool thing about their model. They did not write the content. But what they are really good at is the headlines. Now, so they did a presentation, and I actually have a blog post over at blogmarketingacademy.com where I talk all about headlines, and I do link to their presentation in that blog post. But they talk about how every single blog post that they write or piece of content that they do, they write 25 headlines for it. And just the process of writing those 25 headlines, you're going to arrive at a lot better ones. Usually our shoot from the hip, I'm going to write one headline and damn it, that's going to be the one that I put out there, isn't going to be your best headline. So if you sit down and you force yourself to write 25 of them, you're going to start coming out with a lot better headlines. Now, I actually did the exercise. I tried it. And I think it took me about 12 or 13 minutes to do it. So it's not that bad. And in the scheme of things, 12 or 13 minutes is a pretty good investment of time to come out with a better headline, to get more people to read my post and get more effect from the post. Because if it takes me 3 or 4 hours to write a good blog post, the last thing I want is for me to cut the readership of that post in half because I wasn't willing to spend an extra 10 or 15 minutes coming out with a really clever headline for it. So that is a really big thing that I hope that you will begin doing and really put it to use. You can go out there on Google and search for this, by the way, Upworthy 25 headlines or something like that. You will find this presentation. And it is a really good piece of advice. It does take a little bit longer, but you're going to come up with a lot better headlines. Now, the other thing I recommend that you do is keep a swipe file of headlines. This is something that's easy to do. When you read other blogs, whether they be in the same market as yourself or not, even if it's just blogs that you are personally interested in, and you see a headline that really, excuse me, makes you want to read it, ask yourself, what is it about that headline that's actually working right now? Save that headline, swipe it into Evernote or something, and keep a swipe file. I like to keep my swipe file inside of Evernote. And you can really use these things as models to come up with your own headlines. And you're going to find these headlines everywhere. You're going to find them on magazine covers. So if you're in a bookstore and you see a really, really good headline on the front of a magazine, what can you do? Pop out your phone, snap a little photo of it, and put it into Evernote. And you've got that in your swipe file. Same thing when you're in the grocery store checkout line and you're looking at magazines. Now, obviously, those things are going to be like celebrity gossip and mostly bullcrap, but the headline structure works. And so that's something that you can swipe with your phone and put it into an Evernote swipe file. Same thing with blogs or social media stuff that you see on Facebook or Twitter. When you see a headline that really works and you think you can model, you could swipe that into an Evernote swipe file. Now, you can go and find swipe files, for example. You could go to google.com right now, and here's a search that you can run. You can search for headline swipe file. Very simple. And see what comes up. But here's a little modifier that you can put on that. And you may not even know that you could do this with Google. But put headline swipe file, and then as the next thing, say file type, one word, just file type with no space in there, :PDF. And what that will do is you will actually tell Google to search for headline swipe files, but specifically PDF search results. So you're going to get a bunch of PDF files of different swipe files that other people have created. You can go and check them out, and guess what you can do? You can save them and put them into your Evernote. So you actually had other people do all the work for you, creating these headline swipe files, and you can now put them into Evernote and save you a hell of a lot of time. And then you, when you need to come out with your 25 headlines for your next blog post, you can go and use these swipe files so that you don't have to sit there and rack your brain for an hour. You could use these swipe files and shorten it to maybe 10 or 15 minutes like it took for me to come up with these 25 things. Now, once you come up with these 25 headlines, what do? Well, pick the one that makes the most sense to you, that really stands out to you, and you can use that as your headline. Now, what can you do with the other headlines there, the other 24 of them? Well, chances are a good portion of them are going to suck, let's be honest. But you're probably going to have, 5 or so headlines that you're like, those are pretty good, actually, but you can only use one. Well, there's a few things that you can do. First of all, there are plugins out there. I'd have to go out and find them for you, but you could find this on Google quite easily. But there are plugins for WordPress that will allow you to split test headlines on a single blog post. And so you could enter 2 or 3 different headlines for the same exact blog post, and WordPress will literally automatically rotate them and find out which one gets the most incoming traffic. So that's something that you can do. And then the plugin will actually take the winner and make that your permanent headline. Here's another thing that you could do with your alternative headlines is go out to, when you share your post out on social media to get traffic to them, you obviously don't want to send out the exact same tweet multiple times, but you can send out your alternative headlines. And then what do you do from there? You can see which one of those tweets are getting the most click-throughs. Now, obviously, you're going to want to use a different bit.ly link or something like that so you can actually track which of those tweets are getting the most engagement. In fact, if you go to your Twitter account, like actualtwitter.com and not inside of an app or something, you can go to the stats section. I think it's maybe in the advertising section. It's been a little while since I've been there. But you can actually look at your stats and see which of your tweets are getting the most engagement and the most click-throughs. So what you can do is then go and look at which version of your headline is getting higher click-through rates on Twitter. And then you can go, okay, well, that might be a better converting headline than even the one that I'm using on my blog. So go change your headline. And it isn't going to hurt anything. You can definitely go and switch out a headline after the fact. Now, obviously, don't change your URL to the blog post, but you can change your headline. It's not going to have a negative impact. So that's what you could do with those alternative headlines, and yet maybe another incentive to write 25 headlines for every single blog post that you do. Okay, so those are my big tips on how to actually write better headlines, to model high converting headlines. Pay attention to what other people are doing, and then get a lot more practice by making it part of your routine to write up to 25 headlines for every single blog post that you publish. Okay, you will get more click-through rates. You'll get higher click-through rates, more traffic by doing this. So this is definitely a worthy exercise. Okay, with all that, thanks for listening. Also, by the way, thanks for putting up with my little bit of a cough here. I'm kind of getting over something right here. And the thing is, I'm doing a one-take recording on these podcasts. The last thing that I want to do is sit there and try to edit out coughs or something, because it's just not my style. So I try to get away from the mic. I try to do the best I can. But unfortunately, one of the things about podcasting is that it is dependent on my voice. And if my voice is acting a little weird, or if I'm a little hoarse or whatever, the show must go on, as they say. So it is what it is. If one of my coughs made its way into your ears via your headphones or something, I apologize for that. But I'm doing the best I can, and I want to keep this thing on schedule by doing 2 a week. 2 episodes a week of Coffee Break Blogging. So with that, thanks for listening to this one. I will see you in a few days with the next episode, where we're going to be talking about how to keep your readers' attention through to the end of your blog post. A very important episode coming up. That'll be episode 61, and I'll see you then.